Good evening, family. My name is the Black Truth Seeker, and this is the Black Truth Seeker channel. My message tonight will be the Willie Lynch effect. But before I get off into this message, I want you to ask yourselves two questions. Number one, is the Willie Lynch letter authentic or is it a hoax? Number two, does the contents of the Willie Lynch letter have an effect on how we behave in 2025? Those two questions you can ask yourself, okay? I've done a little research on the very existence, okay, of Willie Lynch, and I have not found anywhere that this man ever existed. There's nothing that I can place or put my hands on. There's no tangible that I can come up with that would prove the existence of Willie Lynch. So my conclusion as to the existence of Willie Lynch is that he never existed. Okay, that don't mean anything. He just never existed. But what I do believe existed is the contents of this letter. This letter came from somewhere, some source. We may not know the source, but we do know that the contents of this letter is being played out right here, even in 2025, by the Black community. It's being played out. So, with that said, let's get into the message. Now, just giving a little background on William Lynch, he was a plantation owner. He was a master in the British Indies. So he came to Virginia, the Virginia colony. It was called colonies back then, because colonialism was very popular over in the Western Hemisphere. So they was really setting up camp over there. And Virginia was one of the colonies that they created over there. But the thing is, in 1712, they didn't have control over the Negroes. Now, I know it was another word that they said, but just for YouTube's sake, I'm not going to say that, and I'm just going to use the term Negro. But there were Negroes on the plantation that was rebellious. They fought back, and they was giving the plantation owners the business, okay, as they should have, as any human being that's being taken away and stripped of everything that they own, everything that they possess, is naturally they are going to fight back because they don't want those possessions taken from them. So, with that said, Mr. Lynch gave this particular letter to the plantations by way of speech. He held a speech, and at the inception of his speech, he said that if you go by the contents of this letter and you use every content in this letter for the next 300 years, you will still have control over these slaves. Now, to me, that's just one aspect of proof that this letter really existed, because when you add 300 to 1700, what do you get? Just go back 300 years from now. What century will you be in? Okay? So you add 300 to 1700, you get to 2000s. This is where we at right now. And this was stated back in 1712. Now, my understanding is that, okay, the letter doesn't have a source, but the contents in the letter is very authentic. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to prove it to you. Actually, you can pull the letter up on your own time and you can read it. There are different forms of the letter. They tell different stories, but all the stories is synonymous, okay? I'm going to start with his speech. His speech stated to the plantation owners that there are 3 things that you have to do to get control of these slaves. Number 1 is trust. Number 2 is envy. And number 3 is fear. And he said, you must use these 3 core principles to turn these slaves against each other. We can't have them on the same page. We can't have them walking alike and talking alike. You know, we can't have them looking at each other like we're the same. We got to show some differences. So what he did, he came up with a lot of differences that he wanted these plantation owners to instill in these slaves. Number 1, you have to have slaves living on the hill, and you have to have slaves living in the valley. Now, you have to do this purposely. This is for the purpose of the divide and conquer technique. This is what this is. It's divide and conquer. Okay? You have to show the slave that got the good coarse hair and the bad coarse hair that they are different. You got to show them that they're different. Their status on the plantation. You have to give privilege to one slave, and you have to treat the other slave differently. You have to show the difference so that you can create this word called envy. So the slaves will start envying one another. Okay? The size. You have to show that the big, strong, masculine brother is different from the slave that's 5 foot. You have to show them that the one that's 6 foot or better, he's better than you. That's what you have to do. So there are 6 core principles, 6 more core principles. Actually, it was 9 altogether. You got envy, you got trust, and you got fear. But there are 6 core principles that you have to implement in the training of making a slave. Number 1, you have to realize that they are no good to the economy in a wild or natural state. Now this principle is for you and not the slave. This is for you to understand that a slave is no good to the economy. See, this is what it's all about. All this stuff about racism and plantation and, you know, colonialism and all of this stuff is all about the economy. This is what it's all about. Okay? I want you to follow me on this. Number 2, you have to break the slave and tie him down and do whatever you want to do with them while they tied down. But this is how you get order. You got to get order. So now you're using the physical aspect. I don't know, they probably beat the mess out of them. You know, it ain't no telling. But whatever they did to them, they got them in line eventually. Okay? The 3rd core principle is that for orderly, future, special, and particular attention must be paid to the female. You must give special attention to the female and the young offspring in particular. Now, this was the 3rd. The 4th is that you must crossbreed. And we already know how that's done. You know, because they raped the mess out of our sisters, our ancestor sisters. Yes, they did. The 5th, they must be taught to respond to a particular language. In other words, whatever is told to them by the overseers, because you had plantation overseers that was under the masters, and most of the time the overseers was black. And then you had the plantation owners. So you must be taught to respond to whatever they say, to their language. That's what it's talking about. And last but not the least, number 6, psychological and physical instructions of containment must be created for the Negro. psychological and physical instruction. See, they got to break you down mentally. You know, they use psychology first. They don't beat you first. You will never get control over anything if you just flat out just beat the mess out of them. No, what you got to do, you got to get in their head first. This is why it was so important for them to strip us of our language. It was very important. If they had never stripped us from our language, America wouldn't be what it is today. They had to strip us. And a lot of us are still stripped to this day throughout the generations. Like the man said, he said that if you follow the contents of this letter, that in 300 years, you will still have control. Okay? So that's what they did. And a lot of times what they do, they'll get a pregnant woman, Negro woman, they'll get a man, and they'll have another, the man that they get, he must be close to her in some kind of way, whether it was her husband or a boyfriend, or they was tight. They was real close. They had a baby coming. Then they would get another Negro, a male, and they would get another Negro that they would tie in between two horses. Okay? And then they would, paint this man down with some type of solution that will hold fire on this man so that when they set him on fire, the fire won't die down. And while he's on fire, they will smack the horses on their asses, making them go north and south or east and west, splitting the man in two right there before the other three slaves, the one in her stomach, her and her companion. So this is how they put fear into the slave. Psychologically, they ain't trying to go against master after seeing that, because they don't want that to happen to them. That's just one of many nefarious tactics that they use to get control of us. So the ultimate question is, does these tactics and does this Willie Lynch letter have an effect on us today? And I say, yes, it does. Because in 1712, they turned the old Negro against the young Negro. They turned the young Negro against the old Negro. Okay? This is the tactic that they use, the divide and conquer tactic. They turn the male against the female, and they turn the female against the male. Divide and conquer. So you would have to ask yourself, well, what does that have to do with us today? Now, I'm not talking about any other culture or any other race right now. I'm talking about black people. Right now, today in 2025, we have a major gender war going on between the male and the female. Major gender war. We have a major war against the young and the old against the young. We know that this stuff exists. We know that this stuff is happening right now. We know that we are divided and we're always taking each other down. We don't understand that this stuff is happening because it's done by a systematic institution called slavery. Okay? And when I bring it up to date, slavery really never stopped. It never ended. It just came in another form. We came off the plantations, then the chain gang was born, another form of slavery. Then sharecropping was born, another form of slavery. Okay? Then convict leasing was born, another form of slavery. Now these happen like in generations, leading all the way up until the present day. Then Jim Crow. If you don't know what the Jim Crow laws is, that's another project that you need to study. Study the Jim Crow project. you know, because you'll find out and you will see very vividly that we are still in the midst of slavery. Actually, it's worse than it is now than it was back then. Because at least we did have some kind of unity back then. Today, all we do is exploit each other. You know, even on the internet, I see it all the time. I see these pro-black, yeah, power to the people, brothers and sisters, yeah, yeah, and they all at each other's throat. Why is y'all not on the same page? What is going on? Y'all supposed to be on the same page. If you talking all of this black power stuff, where's the unity? Why is y'all used? You got one brother, you know, he taking money from black folks. Talking about a school that ain't never been built. 15 years later, he still talking about the same school. What is going on with us? Why can't we be on the same page? We can't put the blame on the white man right now. We can't do it because we have the resources right now. We have enough black millionaires and enough black billionaires. You don't need a lot. We can make a difference right now. But we choose not to do it. We are so divided. It's scary. But I just wanted to convey that message to you, family, because we got to do better today in 2025. And I always say, and you will hear me say this repetitiously, it's going to become redundant, that we got to study. The Black Panthers, before they became powerful in the 60s, the first thing that they did, they had to educate themselves. They didn't just go pick up an assault rifle talking about taking folks out. All of those was propaganda and lies. Them brothers and sisters were smart. They learned the system. First, they had to study about themselves. They had to research about themselves. Then they turned around and studied the system over here. Shoot, one sister represented herself in a murder case. She was so smart, you know. And I'm talking about Angela Davis. Represented herself and walked out of the courtroom like this with her fists up in the air. She knew they couldn't touch her because she mastered their language. That's why they don't want you to study. They don't want you picking up no books. Well, I'm getting too far deep into this stuff. Now, I'm going to have to depart for right now, family. But if you like this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. You can share this video. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe because I will have many more videos like this coming out. And these videos is not just to be ranting. These videos is not to just be, sometimes I call it, psychological masturbation and all of this other stuff. No, these videos is to wake us up. It's to wake us up because we so far gone right now. Somebody got to blow the horn because we don't have anybody on these platforms right now that's for real. I'm talking about for real, for real. And all of these brothers and sisters, they got big platforms. And they just at each other's throat. It's sad. But family, I will come back at you real soon. And until then, peace out.